everyone. This is Sharon Weinstein, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's workshop. I really appreciate the fact that so many of you responded to this survey or to the instrument that I sent out, and that you shared your thoughts in terms of where you're going and where you think you are with brand. And we know how important brand is, so let me share my screen and get started with the slide deck. I'll have a copy of it available for you afterward as a PDF file, should you wish to refer back to it. The program is really entitled It's Time to Step Out and Stand Up at Roche, and it's for a specific reason. It's really about the whole concept of Roche has a brand. We know that they have a brand. We're going to go over that next, but you too need a brand. So let's look for a minute, if we can, at what Roche's brand is. Okay? It's all about identity. It's about feeling, hearing, and seeing who we are. And there are 4 elements involved in the Roche brand, and it's purpose, attributes, stories, and design. And part of those elements, or a piece of each of them, goes into your own brand as well. So let's examine that. Personal branding is really a popular buzzword, and what does it really mean? Having a personal brand allows a professional to show the world who you are as an individual or as an employee. Jeff Bezos tells us that your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, which is great. I'd like to tell him what I think about Amazon Fresh while he's not in the room, because I just had a horrible experience and it would certainly impact my opinion of that brand. But the idea is that employees can build their own brand as well, and they can build unique online brands thanks to all the social media and the tools that we have today. The capability of doing what we do because of our social world. But also, as a professional employee, you may be against creating your own brand personality, or maybe developing your brand identity. You may be unsure of why you should. One of the things that amazed me when I looked at a lot of the profiles of those of you in the program today was the fact that on your LinkedIn profiles, many of you had absent pictures. There was nothing there but the circle. Many of you had no banner. Many of you told me nothing except who you were and where you work and what your title is, but not much more about you. So why does brand matter? Brand matters because we have greater control over our own destinies than ever before. And with that comes more responsibility. And let's face it, there's competition. In today's competitive world, even within the organization, there's as much competition as there is on the outside. And to manage getting ahead, we have to manage ourselves and the impressions that other people have of us. So it's really important because people are constantly observing your behavior and forming theories about your competence, about your character, and even about your level of commitment. Let's look at smile. We're going to unpack your executive presence, and your smile is your logo, whether you have a mask on or not. Other people see that smile. If it's through a mask, they see it in your eyes, they feel it in your face. They know where you are and if you're engaged. They understand that your smile is like your business card. It's how you leave other people feeling after an experience with you, and that becomes your trademark. Because we all know that first impressions count, don't they? We're all different. Organizational norms are different. Organizational cultures are different. Leadership presence is about the people and not the leader. It's about you and not me. Leaders help set the agenda, organize the team, coach others along, and come up with answers, encourage accountability, celebrate success, and applaud your efforts. But it's really all about you. And that's your presence. Have you ever walked into a meeting, looked around the table, and immediately known who was in charge? It's not their seat placement, it's their presence. Although I have a late colleague who would disagree with me. She was a state senator from the 39th district in the state of Illinois when I lived there. Her name was Adeline Giacaris. They even named a park after her right next to the Jack Benny Park. And what was interesting about Gia was that she said when you entered a room, you had to sit far from the door, but facing the door, so that every one of your constituents who entered the room knew who was in charge. When I worked for a long time in China teaching IV therapy and nutrition support, I had the same thing. The leader of the delegation sits opposite the door so that everyone knows who's in charge. But there are occasions when you and I and our peers all walk into rooms and we just sense it. We know who's in charge, and that's part of their personal brand. So, like it or not, you have an image. If you don't develop it by intention, it will develop by default. And that default might not be something that you particularly like. A positive professional image is critical. I cannot explain it enough. It is critical to your success, no matter your age and no matter what field you're in. So there are 3 P's of personal branding: preparation, packaging, and presentation. You can envision it for a product. You understand the packaging of something that comes from 3M or something that comes from Roche or something that comes from Becton Dickinson or something that even comes from Amazon. You can envision it for a product, but what about envisioning it for yourself? When you look at preparation, it's the most difficult thing. It makes us conduct extensive personal due diligence to understand our strengths, our responsibilities, our weaknesses, our interests, our values, our aspirations, our motivations, and our needs. We needed to collect feedback from others to gain insight, to know who we are. And this is the process that helps us to uncover what those differentiators are for each of us and how we can then move on with our package. When we're packaging, you understand it from a pharma standpoint, certainly from Roche, from sequencing, you create and build your brand. Our packaging reflects our style and tells our story in a way that allows us access to different venues where we would like to execute our presentation. That's our package. And what about our presentation? It allows us to articulate and enhance our brand. It's about strong communication, active listening and interpersonal skills, being concise and being assertive, practicing your delivery again and again and again, and being proactive and strategic with your efforts to be visible. So I'd like you to think about the big picture. We have 2 breakouts scheduled for this session, and the first one will be now. I'm going to give Mary control because I want her to put you into those breakouts. But let's talk for a minute about what the breakout is. It's about having fun, and it's a comparison game. If your brand was an animal, what would it be? So it's about equating your brand with other objects and with other people, and a really quick way to access your brand's personality and positioning. You can play the game against lots of categories. You can do soft drinks, famous brands, animals, clothing. I've chosen animals, and you may dream of being a lion, but realize your brand is more like a lamb. There's something wonderfully non-threatening about comparing your brand to an animal, which can reveal powerful insights. Okay, let's go back. Let's have a reporter from each side take a couple of minutes and tell us what went on in your group and what kind of animals, what was the range? Who wants to start?
We had quite an array of different animals. Everyone picked something else. So just quickly, we had dolphin, female cat, gator, wolf, beaver, dog, and raccoon. And there was a lot of really fun topics that people brought up about why they chose the animal. But overall, I think the theme we kind of picked up on was the aspects of working in a group or a pack and why social network and relationships are important. And also the animals are typically chill until they were pushed to action. So kind of focusing on that balance between being nice and being more assertive or standing your ground when you need to.
Interesting. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Go ahead.
Our group, we had a rabbit, we had a dragon, dolphin, squirrel, the European kind, and giraffe, monkey, and Leo, lion. We were inspired by our first participant going off the zodiac sign, so that made it easier for the rest of us. We have a wide range of personality traits that was discussed, and it's like you look at the animal kingdom was there. So We talked about agility, curiosity, the intellectual, affectionate. We talked about perseverance and happy to adapt and see things through.
Okay, and who's next?
I can go next. So in our group, we had several people identify with different kinds of bears with the feeling, that kind of mama bear feeling, right? So that you're kind of fluffy and warm and approachable looking, but if you're threatened, you will protect your cubs, right? In terms of, protecting the team. And then we had an owl who felt like they were focused, analytical, and methodical, a chameleon that can fit into any environment and take care of threats when needed. So a lot of kind of that same consistent theme there. And then we had actually a good amount of leftover time. So we started talking about what kitchen appliance we would be.
Okay.
And so we had an Instant Pot because it could do just about anything quickly and consistently.
Okay, who's next?
I'll go. So in our group, we had unicorn, dolphin, puppy, panda, elephant, lioness, and we also had some extra time. So our coaches also shared giraffe and golden retriever. It was there was a good discussion. I think everybody kind of at first was a little not sure what their animal was, but as we talked it, I think everybody came up with their animal very quickly. And one theme we did talk about was, protection and passion, and but it was a really fun conversation.
Okay, great. Do we have one more group or two more? Or is that it?
You had 4 groups total.
Okay, so everyone has spoken. Okay, great. So we know the comparisons, we know what your animal would be, and we know why your animal would be what your animal is. You talked about your animal. Let's talk about the benefits of branding, especially now that we understand a little bit about who we would choose. From a branding standpoint, it's about online visibility. It's about standing out from the rest. Some of those animals allow you to stand out from the rest. When I heard the discussion about the giraffe and the spots not being in the same place, but being so tall, looking out over the rest, having a great view, having that line sight, that ability to see a bigger picture. We can talk about marketing ourselves as an innovator, success at work and at life. All of this is a product. All of this is you as a product. And the strongest brands, and perhaps the strongest animals, are powerful, they're authentic, they're consistent, they're visible, they're valuable. And the same qualities apply to your personal brand. When you think of yourself as a product, you are a product of your personal brand. So what is your current brand? We all have attitudes and we all have beliefs about brands based on our experiences. We like to work with people who are authentic, who are polite, who are positive, who are the best versions of themselves. But what's your current brand? Your brand is an action every moment of every day, no matter who you are, no matter with whom you're interacting, and no matter what you do. And in your professional life and in your career, this is where your brand really needs to shine. We're talking about a shining star. I had an opportunity to work with a young nurse in an emergency department on Sunday morning who was the shining star of Johns Hopkins healthcare system. There is no question whatsoever. She had the best attitude. She's part of the trauma team. She was working with individuals who were really challenged, and she was shining above all else, making everyone feel as if they were the most important person in the room at all times. So when you're attending a business meeting or a networking event, how do you dress? What does your physical appearance say about you? Are you conscious of your body language and your eye contact? Do others feel seen by you? Do they feel as if you are paying attention when they're speaking? Is your handshake, when you could shake hands, or your face behind a mask perceived as sincere and firm? And do your colleagues perceive you as anxious or maybe even as calm, maybe collected? Do you appear to be organized and well put together? How do your voice and your manner represent who you are? Are you a good listener? When you're listening, are you thinking about your response to that question or what your next question might be? Or are you seriously listening with intention so that you can answer with intention and respond and be present in the moment? Do those conversing with you feel heard? When you describe your professional work and your career, what do others hear in your voice? Is it excitement? Is it passion? Are you enthusiastic and positive, or pessimistic and cynical and unhappy? And when you meet others, are you interested and are you interesting? What is your current brand? I asked you in preparation for this workshop to answer several questions on a 2-page document. There were questions about people you admire in your industry, where they're seen most often and what makes them unique. It allowed you to step up and to stand out. Responses varied, but they focused on 2 thoughts that make a smart leader who mobilizes teams to deliver milestones and is respected at the end of the day. Leaders who are passionate create an inclusive environment so that everyone can be their very best, and they put other people first. Who were the key opinion leaders? Someone perhaps who was a pathologist. Names that came to mind were Jill German, Bonnie LaFleur, Vera Imper, Tom, I think it's Schnecker, Dan Zabrowski, and Costello. There were lots of names that were given. And where are these people? I didn't hear that they were all at Roche, but I did hear that some of them were seen most often at Roche. And what makes them unique? Strategy. They're visionary. They're humble. They build bridges. They bridge the gap between things that need to be done and those who get things done. And I have a feeling that among the ambassador pool, you are the folks who get things done. So they break barriers and they challenge the status quo. And the next series of questions I asked about you. And it was how other people see you. Perhaps as a great communicator who's technically strong, who values balance and speaks up and cares about where they are in their respective career, who have a calm demeanor, who are creative problem solvers. What do you want to be known as? And the answers that I got were a leader who creates and drives high-performing teams, the person who keeps her word and gets the job done, and affects meaningful organizational change. And who are the people to whom you'd like to appeal? Cross-functional teams, senior leaders, even family and friends, and established women in leadership positions. Where are these people seen most often? Well, they're the experience, apparently, they're the people who share their experiences in TED Talks. Many of you watch those talks online because they're sharing their experiences and their values with others to not only further their own careers, but to also help and inform others of something that is important. The skills that you want people to know you have: analytical thinker, connecting the dots, someone who sees the larger picture, an intuitive thinker, someone who is pragmatic. And when it came to signature phrases, there was a plethora of opinions. I can help with that. I'm a work in progress. Let me take a moment to think about it and get back to you. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. That's my favorite as a former intravenous pharmacology person. If it isn't documented, it never happened. I'm ready for new challenges. Working on a value proposition leads with humble confidence and passion. What's unique about you? You make sure that everyone's voice is heard. Perhaps you put people first and care deeply about making decisions that align with the company's mission and doing now what patients need next. And then define your brand. Again, a work in progress, reserved and quiet, a change enabler. Someone who puts out quality the very first time. Someone who conquers the challenges. It was interesting when I asked you to state your brand in one sentence. For example, Helen of Troy was the face that launched 1,000 ships, etc. Do you? The answers that I got on this grid were amazing. Lots of 3s and 4s, very few 5s, especially in making eye contact with people you've just met. and one or two ones. So obviously your opinions of yourselves vary. But let's look personally at Amy. Amy's brand: no nonsense and a selfless partner, a strategist. How do people see Yao? Technically strong domain expert, inclusive team leader. And what about Carrie's signature phrase? She's the one. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. What about Jennifer? I enable positive change. And what makes Rebecca unique? A rare combination of technical and interpersonal skills and a willingness to tackle issues head on. And what about Stephanie? Versatile, purpose-driven leader, looking to make a real impact and solve important problems. So what you were doing was showcasing your value, building self-awareness, enhancing visibility, telling me about you. Personal branding gives you the control and it gives you the power. If a person is well connected and trusted by customers, by peers, and by coworkers, they are more likely to be respected by their employer. Employees can create impressive social media profiles that showcase their ability, connections, and interest. I'd like to peruse all of your personal profiles. You can achieve professional autonomy by creating a brand that proves your value and your worth as an expert. And strong professionals can be part of a strong team to make an even stronger company. So you need to showcase your brand. When you showcase your brand, you build influential relationships. You get involved, as you are now, in cross-functional projects across the board with the Ambassador Program. You use volunteering to strengthen or to develop your skills, and you take on a leadership role. Maybe you start a website, maybe you start a blog, but essentially you're showcasing to stand out. And how do you do that? You become the point person. You become the person who is the go-to resource. You sit in on meetings, even if they're outside of your own wheelhouse, your own realm, to learn how your coworkers make decisions. You ask probing questions and you be the fresh perspective in the room. You demonstrate your value again and again, and you volunteer to problem solve beyond what it says in your job description. Your job description is not what defines you. Your actions are what defines you. You build self-awareness. You want others to know who you are and what you do. Personal branding allows you to show what matters to you. I got some of that in the animal discussions. What matters to you? What's important to you? Your brand becomes about the skills and the interests that you have and are interested in, not what your job and not what your environment might have dictated about you. And if you're lucky, your job and your interests, personal and professional, will interact. So when we enhance visibility, it's a really important issue. You might think that having a social media presence altogether is the answer, but it's not. We've all seen social media presences that are less than desirable. We don't want people to see that. We're cautioned about it with kids, especially teenagers, and the kinds of things that they post. Even some young adults or even older adults or middle-aged adults, I'm appalled sometimes at what I see. You won't be better off by avoiding a professional role on social media, but you might be limiting yourself and your potential for growth. So you want to demonstrate something, but what you're going to demonstrate is going to dictate how others view you. The visibility could result in unexpected opportunities or maybe a professional advantage down the road that you had not even considered. And in order to do this, you need to start by establishing goals. My favorite goal setter of all time. I don't know if it's because he was such a winning star and because I lived in Chicago for 30 years and got to see them through multiple championships, or because of the fact that the gentleman who lived maybe 2 miles from me gave out full-size Snicker bars at Halloween, had a big number 23 on the gate outside his house, and the lines were so long just to get the Snickers and to come to that gate and to be part of a process in which you actually got to interact, even at a distance, with someone who truly knew about goals. A personal brand helps you determine who you are and where you're going. And without that direction, you might get stuck. You've been out in your car, you've used a GPS or navigation system or CarPlay or something else. Sometimes you wonder what directions they're giving you and if in fact they're in the right state. Some systems are harder to use than others, but without that process, without that system, we have no way of knowing where we're going. We don't know our direction. So personal branding gives each of you the opportunity to pinpoint where you want to go and how that could be accomplished with checkpoint goals along the way. You need to have that checkpoint. For career advancement, everybody wants to advance in their career. You don't want to stay in the same position forever, never learning and never growing. You want to expand your reach. You want to outreach to others. You want to expand that network. When employees build a strong brand identity, it provides the opportunity to work on improving their own value and edge on a personal level. It's far more difficult and often less impactful if you build a brand at the last minute due to need, rather than building it over a period of time. So it's a work in progress. It's something that is growing as you are growing with a small measure of foresight. That brand can also provide increased exposure for your employer. When I was working for Premier, I had a role within Premier as the director of the Office of International Affairs that spanned 68 countries and that took me everywhere. While the majority of us focus on the point of personal brand, you can benefit your employer, whether that's intentional or not. When you're posting content online, when you're sharing ideas, when you attend conferences, when you respond to other people's posts on LinkedIn, you're representing your company. I always told people who accompanied me on international delegations that you are representing not just yourself, but your employer, your company, and your country. Let's think about that. So what about your role? Does your job description really say what you do? And what do you really do beyond that job description? How do you interact with others? What is, in fact, your personal brand, and who are you? So how do you define that? You claim your name. You claim your presence on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and your own personal site if you have one. You position yourself as a thought leader. Do you have special niche knowledge? Do people know that they can go to you for specific content? You promote colleagues in the industry. People love to help the people who help them. If you see a post and it's interesting and you see some value in what your colleague posted, do you comment positive notes about that and promote them even further? Do you answer people's questions, respond to queries? When you see someone asking a question about your industry, take a few minutes to answer. Create alerts for questions that you might be able to answer. You can also search or browse Twitter looking for places where you can be of use to others. Post frequently. It's not enough to create a social media account. You should be posting on a regular basis, and you don't have to do it by posting every day. You can use Hootsuite or other programs that allow you to pre-post or to schedule your posts. Create visual continuity, so have your message be ongoing and continual, and develop clear and consistent messaging so that people understand who you are and what you do. In doing so, you're defining yourself. You're defining yourself. People share to show the world who they are and define the type of person who they want to be. So in entertainment, for example, people share content to entertain their audiences, whether that entertainment is made for family, for friends, or for colleagues. When you're defining yourself, they share to tell the world who they are and define the type of person they want to be. And then we go into relationships and so much more. There's self-fulfillment, and there's people who support a cause. It's whatever you attach yourself to becomes a part of that brand. So devise your GPS. We talked about that. It's a blueprint. It allows you to express your point of view, to identify your values, to create content, to reestablish yourself. It tells who you are. Let's look at that GPS. The GPS actually stands G for goals. We have to have them if we're going to succeed. P is the process. We have to follow a process to reach those goals. And S is for systems, because without a system in place, success would, of course, be limited. You need to express your point of view. If your goal is the what, it means that your brand's vision is the why. Your intuition is a future-focused statement of what will possibly happen after fulfilling your mission. So make sure that it's motivating, make sure that it's ambitious, make sure that it tells us who you are. And a remarkable way to think about a vision statement is by thinking about the absolute effect of the product or the service that you will offer. Chances are that professionally, you can do that within Roche. Chances are that personally, you cannot do that when you look at yourself. So identify your values, because your brand values are your firm. They're going to help you manage the organization's actions, motivate the workplace culture, keep things in sync. Elaborate on what you symbolize and don't just settle, reach for more. Think about as soon as you have identified your brand values, note them as statements that epitomize your personal utilization, your industry's utilization. Make them your keywords. Chances are you've done keyword searches at one time or another. I ask you to go and do a search for keywords and find those things that have less than 100,000 hits. Make those your own and own them, and conclude those keywords in all of your correspondence, in your posts, and in what you say and in what you do. Use them to create your own content. It's natural for us as human beings to have interest in many, many different things, pursue new experiences, and maybe acquire new skills. But many people see it as unprofessional or amateur. It's not. It may be unfair. You need to build a logical narrative that demonstrates exactly how your past plays a part in your present and how that will lead to your future. You may get recognition for learning different quality skills if you tell your story nicely, and it never hurts to be kind in the process. Create content that reflects who you are, what you do, and what kind of a person you choose to be. And then reestablish yourself. After you embrace your brand, secure new contacts. And that's an important part of the industry. How many contacts do you have on LinkedIn? If you looked at your own profile, and we'll be working on those profiles in session number 2, how many contacts do you have? In general, they say 500 plus. That's a good number to have. But if it says that you have 5 or 6 contacts and you reach out to connect with someone else, are they going to want to connect with you? They're going to look and see, to whom are you connected? Your involvement with projects has to indicate new pursuits, skills, establish contacts, evolve new skills, maximize the opportunities, certainly within your own company. Are you connected to those in the ambassador program? Are you connected to your advisors? Are you connected with those with whom you work? Show your worth. You can swiftly bring about your proficiency if you help people find a solution to their problem. Everybody has one problem or another, and everybody wants to have a solution. There's a Copyblogger founder named Brian Clark who did that. He provides constant tips regarding the improvement of web contact and acquires online followers because he has demonstrated his worth. Once you've shown your potential, nail down your brand or your rebrand by mingling with the people who specialize in what you would like to specialize in within your organization. They don't need to be within the Roche family. Heaven knows the pharma field is large enough that there are people with jobs similar to your own in every single group. And when you look within the HBA Ambassador Program alone, there are many, many others with whom you might connect who do what you do and perhaps have a similar role within their own companies. Those are the people with whom you should be connecting. So show your worth and then ask yourself, what makes you special? What are your greatest strengths? What differentiates you from others? How are you unique? What are your greatest accomplishments? What do people come to you for? What do you want to be known for? What do you want others to think when they hear your name? When they see your name in a message, in an email, or from a voicemail? What do you want them to think about you? And then fine-tune your soft skills. And that's about creativity and communication and growth mindset and emotional intelligence and collaboration and leadership. All of these, the emotional intelligence piece encompasses your social skills, your ability to self-regulate, your self-motivation. Are you empathic? Are you self-aware? Know yourself and fine-tune those soft skills. And then you also want to do some social sharing and some perception. Again, entertainment, defining ourselves, our relationships, our self-fulfillment, and maybe supporting a cause. How do we go about that, and how do we share with people who we are, what we do? how we define ourselves, what fulfills us on a personal and professional level, and what kinds of relationships have we built. Do we support some type of a cause? Is it something like humanity? Is it something personal? Is it something related to health or well-being? Is it something that is disease-oriented? What is that cause? It may be something that's community-oriented right now during a pandemic. Are you working at a food bank? Are you helping to collect things for people who just don't have what they need? What type of a cause are you working on? What are you supporting? And then entertainment. They share contact to entertain their audiences, whether that audience is made up of almost anyone. They build those relationships. People share to make themselves feel good about who they are and where they're going. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not selfish, it's fulfillment. And then again, sharing that cause. So decide who you want to be. What's your emphasis? Who's your target market? Tell me about your authenticity, your storytelling, your consistency, your impression, and what is the footprint that you will leave? What is the legacy that you'll be leaving? So emphasis and target audience. You have to understand the audience for your brand. You're trying to find and connect with people who do the right things, who do what's right for you. You want to determine who you are and who you're doing this for. You can do it through research, or you can get in touch with people who you think are the right fit for you. There are many times on LinkedIn and on other networks where people reach out and say, I see that we're connected through others. I wonder if you'd be interested in a short call to find out what we might have in common and how we might help one another. And from an authenticity standpoint, this is who I am. This is my background story. It describes what I've done in the past, what I did to get to this point, and where I plan to go in the future. You know, there are many, many things that happen in our lives that shape who we are. Sometimes, if we posted them all, it would make us thousands of years old. But pick out the relevant parts of your past and shape them into a background story, or pick out the relevant pats on your back of your story and shape them into your story. And then that brings us to the story. Everybody has a different background. Everybody has a different story. But a big part of personal branding is finding a way to tell your own story. What do we need to know about you and inspire others on a similar path? When you're telling a story, it's not just when you're in front of a crowd, at a lectern, telling a story, giving a speech. You're telling a story every time that you're together in a group, and your audience needs to know and understand who you are in order to be able to connect with you. Here are a few things to consider when you're crafting your own story. So we'll enter breakout number 2, and we're going to talk about big brand and role play. I want you to think of a famous brand that you admire, preferably outside of your company's industry. It could be a celebrity. It could be a sports franchise. It might be a brand of smartphone. It might be anything. Each person in the group takes turns sharing why they chose that brand, what made it special, what made it a standout. Imagine that famous brand took over Roche. They took over your entire company. They acquired you. Then I want you to write down 3 changes that your favorite brand might make in the company for which you work now, in the company Roche. For example, Apple might revamp your packaging. Google might simplify your product's user experience, and Zappos might inject some fun into the customer support experience. This exercise is going to help you consider new ways to create brand experiences for your customers by taking inspiration from some of the big boys. So let's go to that now. We have 4 groups. Let's hear what you have to say. Who's going to take you over, if anyone? Ezra?
Thank you, Sharon. I will be representing my team. We had 2 Apple admire team members, and because of high quality, innovative, the trust that they build with the customers and predicting what customer needs. That's how they stand out, and then when they took over, again, customer centric and innovation, which we do. That's our purpose as well. But maybe that's highest standard of all phones, for example, that aspect of it. Then we talked about a brand, Princess Autumn. That's a clothing company founded by some known friendship, and they make nerdy clothing for girls with pockets, and then they make clothing for boys with some girly elements. If they took over Roche, so they found a gap in the market, and they promote diversity and of the needs and the underrepresented, larger focus of diversity that would take over at our company. We talked about Costco. How Costco followers are like cult-like followers. They will never give up, and the purpose of the company, how they started in giving the people the number one value, where the people took the company to the next level or many levels up, right? Again, my understanding was that Costco's attention to their people made them different, and that's how they were successful. They are. We talked about Barbie by Mattel. So how Barbie is very well known, right? Standard in their industry, and how they have changed from just one same looking body type of standard, which is impossible to how they're transitioning right now, and then they're being role models, and then breaking some of the thoughts, and then they're seeing what customer needs, what is more important. They're keeping themselves up to date, maybe adaptability, challenging the existing notion and meeting the customer need because of that. And then they would bring that into Roche.
I like it.
CVG was another company that we admire. Two sisters started. It's an athletic clothing brand. And again, cult-like followers, how they promote the diversity. They're influencing people about body image and being healthy, well-being. People are so proud who they are, their brand, and then they would bring definitely bring people focus to Roche, and then and then Apple again. So we talked about that.
Who's next?
I can go for our breakout room. So we started off with Pixar and talking about how they are really good, very emotional storytellers. And so that would really help with the product launches and our patient journey stories, because cancer is a very emotional topic. So that's definitely playing to their strengths. If Amazon took over, we'd have fully remote work, which would be nice for the people who don't have, on-site responsibilities. And then we talked about Coca-Cola and how, it doesn't matter if it's Coca-Cola itself or if it's something related to the Coca-Cola brand, you kind of recognize that color combination worldwide.
Exactly.
For IBM, we admired their innovation and ability to change and adapt to the forefront of the market. And with the direction that Transform D is going in right now, which is really Roche trying to kind of digitize and get into the data at your fingertips, that would probably accelerate the progress of Transform D, as well as increase the effectiveness of the final outcome.
Okay.
We talked about Procter & Gamble's advertisement style, where they're not braggy or like conceited, but they do advertise the good that their products do. With a specific example of like Dawn cleaning up after the oil spills. They use Dawn hand soap for that.
Yeah.
And then GitLab is a company which has distributed work. So they really like piece out projects very well. And their software actually enables that piecing out. So we would be able to divide and conquer more effectively. And they're also a really big leader in diversity and inclusion. Not that Roche struggles necessarily in that space, but that GitLab really pushes their people to have the uncomfortable conversations. And it doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable for you, it's learning for you, and you need to take part.
Okay. Okay.
That's
up
everything we had.
Who's up next? Anyone?
I can go for our team.
Go ahead.
So we started with calling Patagonia as a responsible brand that's taking care of their employees, also a one that is innovative and thinking outside the box. Then we talked about Tesla and Amazon, and they both are innovative brands. We talked about how fast and quick the service will be if we are acquired by Amazon, and Amazon owns everything. So having a better connected care would be something to expect. But for that reason of these two companies, and plus Uber, that is also an innovative company, because they're not taking a good care of their employees, we thought, well, these are not that the best options. We talked also about Google. We left at the note of, how everybody's Googling everything. Wouldn't that be great that people were roaching everything? So being the center of the health answered all the questions that you're looking for. Also, we talked about Googlers are known for being stuck at their campus. They're workaholic, at least perceptive-wise. So we said, how can we increase engagement that no employee wants to leave campus? And then we also talked about balance. So I don't think we decided who we want us to be acquired by. We didn't also get a chance to talk about who will lose their job if we are acquired by any.
Very interesting. Okay. Did we hear from everyone, or is there one more group? I think we pretty much heard from everyone. I was waiting for Under Armour, Spanx. We all use Spanx. Wouldn't everyone like to be a part of that organization? Think about the discounts that you could get on that alone, or even Under Armour. There's so many. But the concept is one in which you looked at what was out there, you perceived where you might like to be, and you've made some decisions based upon what that's all about and what it might look like. How do you strengthen your brand? It's really kind of about determining what's your goal, who's your target audience, how does that current brand position you to achieve that goal, and do you need to make any changes? We need to make relevant adjustments along the way. Like instead of Googling things, we're going to be roaching things, right? Is that what we talked about? So we need to make relevant adjustments along the way in terms of filling those gaps. Do we need to educate our staff and our people and our customers on who we are and what we do? What will be that new customer experience? What kinds of relationships will we be establishing? How do we begin to act the part of, instead of being a representative of Roche, I'm a representative of something totally different, an absolutely different entity? How do I introduce myself? How do I speak that new language? And how do I share my story? So in order to do this, we need to be proactive. We need to promote our own accomplishments. We need to maximize our participation in meetings and in groups, internally and externally, even if those groups are remote and virtual. We need to communicate effectively, and we need to always stay relevant. Remember that we need to be strategic. We need to choose those with whom we associate wisely. We want to have a real positive attitude about who we are and about what we do, about our purpose, about what we bring to the organization and what value we bring to others. And we want to dress and act the part. Always maintaining a professional image online as well as in person. And online can be in a virtual meeting, in a Zoom meeting, in a face-to-face meeting if we ever get back to face-to-face. We always want to maintain that professional image in those posts that we put out there, in our profiles on social media, on the YouTube channels that we might maintain or host. First impressions are critical, and it's especially important for those who are entering a business environment. Some of you have been at Roche for less than 2 years. Others of you have been there for the long haul. People form their first impressions when they meet you within those first 3 seconds. That's the same whether it's a post or whether it's a face-to-face or a virtual meeting. You have 3 seconds to matter and 3 seconds to count. And once that impression is formed, ladies, it is very difficult to change. Once it's formed, it's hard to change it. So it's time to really stand out at Roche. And how do you do that? You contribute, you challenge, you be someone who is of service. You ensure that you are a part of an organization that is leading the pack, that is a role model for change, that is a role model in the healthcare industry, that stands for everything for which you would like to stand and for which you would like to be known. It's important to contribute, to challenge, and also to be of service. When you think back about being acquired by another company, and whether it's Google or Patagonia or somebody else, whether it's Barbie, it doesn't matter who it is. What matters is what they stand for. Yes, you recognize the red and white of Coca-Cola. I've seen it all over the world, and I know what that means, except that in some places where I have been, it's very clear to me that they have rebottled those bottles. There is no question in my mind, and I don't really know what I'm drinking. But chances are, 99 times out of 100, it's going to stand for quality. So is what you're doing going to be something that exemplifies quality? Are your contributions significant from a standpoint of quality? Does everything that you do internally within the organization, within your own work group, and within a bigger work group, a bigger work model out of sequencing, does that all speak to quality? Does that all speak to doing what needs to be done, getting the job done, going the extra mile, doing what I need to do, and being of service? Am I contributing? Am I challenging? And am I serving? Those are the important issues. So from a connection standpoint, I'm Sharon. I welcome your connections. Feel free to take a picture of mine. Feel free to connect with me, because in next week's program, we're going to do a deep dive into how to create that profile, what you need to be saying, what you need to be doing, and the steps that you need to take to get there. This is a really important aspect of who we are and what we do. And if you want to step up and you want to stand out, especially in light of the changes that have occurred over the past month or so, and that will be occurring over the next couple of months, you need to first determine what is your brand, who are you, what do you do, and what value do you bring, not just to the organization, but to your industry as a whole. If you could take a moment and write that down before next week, that would be great. That would give you a starting point from a standpoint of knowing what direction you need to take to get to that next level. We'll be doing a lot of hands-on work next week. We'll also have 2 breakouts, and those breakouts will be very different from these, but they'll give you an opportunity to really interact, to show your stuff, and to show us who you are and what you want to be. You know, my kids used to say to me all the time, and it's really rather amusing, "What do you want to be when you grow up, Mom?" And my answer to them was, who said that I ever really had to grow up? Because although I started with a nursing platform, I allowed that platform to take me into multiple industries. As the administrator and director of a practice plan and a clinic at a Chicago medical school, as the director of international affairs for 4,000 hospitals, as a USAID contractor, and in many other spaces and places. You can be who you need to be, and you can do what you need to do. But the starting point always is that brand. What is it? Where will it take you? And what's next? I look forward to seeing you next week on part 2. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, Sharon.
And thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies.
Bye. That was cute.